Hey, generic YouTube intro where I tell you I wasn't planning on making this video and I didn't want to make this video, but here I am making this video, and Apple decided to ban Fortnite from its store. I've been talking a lot about this on Twitter, why Apple decided to ban Fortnite and why I think it was actually a just call. So we're going to talk about all of that in today's video. I'm going to explain the whole situation, and then I'm going to give you some of my thoughts on Apple versus Epic. So let's do the normal intro. Hey, what's going on, everyone? Greg here, and whoo boy, do we have a can of worms to dive into today, as yesterday, Apple banned Fortnite from the App Store. Yes, after years of people begging Elon Musk to buy Fortnite and then cancel it, it looks like Apple is truly a hero here. Not the hero we deserved, but the hero we needed. Nothing less than a knight. Shining. Okay, in all seriousness, this is a big deal with potentially huge implications about the future of Apple's relationship with developers and the Apple App Store policy itself. So let's go over all the details in this case, talk about the arguments for both sides, and ultimately where I fall on this issue. So here's the details if you're not already caught up from yesterday. Fortnite pushed out an update that bypassed Apple's App Store payment system and gave players of Fortnite two options. The option to purchase V-Bucks, that's Fortnite's in-game digital currency, and one of them was priced at $9.99, and another one that was discounted at $7.99. The $9.99 one was Apple's payment method, and the $7.99 went through Epic's payment system, bypassing Apple and in turn giving them a 0% share of any of the sale done through that payment system. This flies in direct violation with Apple's App Store policy, which dictates that to be on the App Store, you must use their own payment system. So after Apple banned Epic, this is what Apple said about Epic's decision in their own words. Epic enabled a feature in its app which was not reviewed or approved by Apple, and they did so with the express intent of violating the Apple Store Guidelines. We will make every effort to work with Epic to resolve these violations so they can return Fortnite to the App Store. After that statement was released by Apple, Epic then issued this statement in response to the ban. Apple's removal of Fortnite is yet another example of Apple flexing its enormous power in order to impose unreasonable restraints and unlawfully maintain its 100% monopoly over the market for in-app payments on iPhones. By the way, this statement that Epic released was immediately followed by a 62-page lawsuit already drafted up and videos featuring Fortnite characters with a rip on Apple's famous 1984 ad and a social media campaign with the hashtag Free Fortnite. Now save your tears, because before you start feeling a bunch of sympathy for Epic Games, know that this was orchestrated from the start and they were fully expecting a ban. Basically, Epic wanted to be banned so they could fight this out in court, especially now that the US government is actively exploring antitrust lawsuits against the big tech companies like Apple, Google, Amazon, and Facebook. So really, what's the issue here? Well, let's run through an example. Normally, Fortnite would sell their digital V-Bucks currency through Apple's App Store, which Epic was charging $10 for. Well, because this is going through Apple's payment system and its Apple storefront, they collect a 30% fee of all digital goods sold through that storefront. In the case of Fortnite, this is in digital currency, which can then be used in-game to buy cosmetic items such as new skins or dances. So if Epic sells you $10 worth of V-Bucks, they make $7 and Apple makes $3. This revenue split is very important because this is at the core of what many third-party developers take issue with here, because they believe the 30% cut for Apple is too high, and that the App Store does not represent enough value for that big percentage cut. Now, I saw some confusion online on Twitter saying that Apple has different tiers for percentage cuts, but that's mainly for subscription services. So for the first year of a subscription service, Apple will take 30%, and then following that, for the second year and any subsequent years after that, Apple will then take a lower rate at 15%. Okay, so are there ways for Epic to go around this 30% App Store cut without violating App Store guidelines? Well, from everything I can see, yes, there are ways around the 30% revenue cut. You can actually buy Fortnite V-Bucks in the form of gift cards from other retailers. And again, from the information I could quickly gather, you can actually use these V-Bucks across platforms to buy digital goods. Epic could even sell these gift cards on their website if they wanted. However, with the App Store, the only guideline rule that I could find is that they cannot advertise or direct customers to purchase these goods outside of the App Store. Well, Epic decided to use the nuclear option here and just offered an alternative payment method in their game, which again is against App Store policy. And if you purchase goods through Epic's payment system, Apple would get a 0% revenue cut. Now you might be asking, well, why should Apple get any percentage of that revenue? They didn't make Fortnite, and it's not fair that Apple gets any percentage at all. Well, you do have to understand that running Apple's App Store isn't free. Apple does need to pay for things like server space. Apple needs to pay developers to update and maintain the App Store. Apple constantly updates its iOS software with new features and APIs that developers can take advantage of, and promotes a generally healthy and active App Store where it is by far the biggest opportunity to make money for developers. Even though iOS as a whole has less users than Android, the App Store is the most profitable, and I'm sure there's even more hidden costs to maintaining and running a digital storefront. So even if you're against the 30% cut, I think it's a little unreasonable to expect Apple to take a 0% fee. So you could fall on one side of the fence or the other. You can think that Apple's 30% cut is fair. Why not? They took the risk. They invested tons of money and time into not only developing the iPhone, but also by creating an app store and building it out year over year to make it an attractive place for developers and consumers alike. Consumers can go to Apple's App Store and know they're essentially buying from a safe and reputable place with a low risk of them buying and installing nefarious apps that could be posing as viruses or malware. Apple built the platform, they own the platform, and they're not even a monopoly in terms of overall user base, with Android having far more users than iOS. So if you really don't like Apple's App Store policies, well, you don't have to develop an app for them. You could go to a different route with Android or Windows. Or in the case of a game like Fortnite, you have more options than a regular smartphone app. You could develop it for Windows, PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo, Linux, or Android, which, by the way, Fortnite is available on all of those platforms. Speaking of which, all of those other platforms also take a 30% cut of revenue generated from digital goods, including the Google Play Store, which has also banned Fortnite for violating the same rules as they did on Apple's App Store. So even though you might think that Apple is taking too much, it's actually the norm throughout the digital storefront industry, with even services like Steam taking the same 30% revenue cut over on Windows. You could also take Epic's side and various other developers' sides in saying that Apple's 30% cut is far too steep for the value they bring to Epic Games. You could argue that Apple should cut special deals for big developers and charge them less. Fortnite brings in more money than your average app from a small developer, so they should be able to cut out a special deal with Apple where maybe Apple takes 15% or a 10% cut. Or maybe you think Apple should apply the rules evenly to all developers, but lower their 30% cut to something lower. Maybe even a 20% cut of generated revenue would seem more fair than the current 30% that they are charging. And if Apple wants to take 30%, you could also argue that Apple should give the option of letting you download apps from websites just like you can on a Mac, bypassing the App Store altogether and giving 100% of the proceeds to developers. And hey, you could make the argument that this is better for the consumer, as naturally if Epic is able to take 100% of the revenue and not have to share it with Apple, well, obviously it stands to reason that maybe Epic could charge even less money for their games and digital goods and passing the savings on to you, the consumer. Well, apparently that wasn't good enough for Epic, who tried something similar on Android and only let you install the game by sideloading it. Apparently Epic gave up on that after not getting enough downloads and eventually relented, allowing itself onto the Google Play Store. With that evidence in mind, it stands to reason that Epic's goal here isn't for Apple to allow you to download apps on a website. No, they want their own store app that users can install onto iOS. Well, here's where that gets tricky, and I'll say be careful what you wish for. Let's say Epic is successful in suing Apple, and the result is Apple having to open up iOS to allow multiple stores on their platform. This will break up the ease of convenience for the user by creating multiple storefronts that you need to go to purchase not only digital downloadable content, but various other apps as well. So that means there could be an Amazon digital store app, a Google Play Store app, an Epic Game app, a Samsung app, a Blizzard Store app, and so on. If you don't think that's the case, look at the current landscape for Windows gaming, where there's less money to be made, and look at all the different game storefronts there are, like Steam, EA Origin, Epic Store, Uplay, Microsoft's Game Store, and it's a huge pain for people who remember the glory days of Steam, where you had all of your games easily accessible in one game library. Picture a scenario where if you wanted to buy a certain app, you might have to go to multiple separate stores to find that app. And that might not be a big deal for users like you and I, but a huge pain for the everyday consumer. Not to mention how secure and safe iOS is as a platform. By opening up this floodgate, you allow for greater risk from malware and viruses. Remember how annoying it was removing those third-party toolbars your parents downloaded from the internet because some pop-up said their Flash player was out of date? Yeah, that's the kind of worst case scenario stuff we could see if Apple loses control of the iOS platform. Listen, do I ultimately see both sides of this argument? Yes. I don't actually have too much sympathy for Epic here, as they've made more money than almost any other game out right now, and this move comes across more as greed to me than actually trying to fight for small developers. Do I think that Apple could scale back the 30% cut from the App Store purchases? Yes, I think they could, and I still think the App Store would be a booming and profitable place to do business, even lowering their cut to 25%, which would be a good first step in that direction, and I think 20% would also be a good step, but perhaps too great of a jump for Apple to currently take, and I'm not sure if even that would satisfy Epic Games. I think what they really want is full control of the payment API process so they can keep every single cent of profit. But I ultimately believe that Apple built the business and owns the platform, and because they took those risks, they deserve to bask in the profits of those decisions. If the App Store truly wasn't a profitable venture for developers, then why aren't they running for the hills and leaving to other platforms? If the App Store truly wasn't a place where you can make money, you would see a mass exodus and boycott of the App Store from developers. Developers would leave for friendlier platforms like Android, and that pressure would ultimately change the policies of the App Store to attract those developers back. But that's not happening because there's more competition than ever in the App Store, and if one app leaves, another developer will just take the opportunity and swoop in with their own app or game to fill the void. But it doesn't matter what I think, it matters more what the judges and US government thinks. When this lawsuit hits the courts, it could fundamentally change the App Store and Apple's business model as we know it. But even though it doesn't matter what I think, please let me know what you think of Apple vs. Epic and the Fortnite ban in the comments below. If you like this video, well, be sure to give me a like. If you want to see more from this channel, make sure you're subscribed. If you want to help the channel out in any way, make sure you check out some of the affiliate links in the description. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Take care, everyone.